All right. So at the time of this recording, it is Saturday, March the 3rd, 2018, and this is just a discussion / debate. I have no idea.
None of us knows what this is.
Yeah,
this is just like completely unplanned madness.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's just say an unclear haranguing about A-1 Pictures.
Sure.
What the fuck?
And so
can I just let me just read exactly what you pitched to me for this.
Hell yeah.
You said, "Yo, Digi, my buddy wants to have a friendly debate with you about A-1." That's all. That's it. That's all I know. That's literally all I know about this. So,
hell yeah.
I don't know if Skrulls, do you know what this is? Because it sounds like you incited this.
I have no idea.
Well,
Nah.
Okay.
Okay. So me and Joe were talking once upon a time. Wait. First question I have to ask you is do you know are you aware of who I am?
Vaguely. I know you're the co-runner of the Pause and Select channel, and I think I've seen one of your videos before. I think
you have.
Yeah. Maybe a few.
I run under the name of not Pause. I almost said Pause and Select. That would have been hilarious. No, I run under the name WW2Dragon.
Right. I've seen that name around.
Yeah. I did a video back when you and Anime Every Day were having a little bit of a kerfuffle.
Uh-huh.
And it was posted on your subreddit, and you commented you were just kind of okay with it or something.
Okay. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm looking at your channel now. I see what's going on. I see what's the haps. Digibro versus Anime Everyday Civil Analysis was your 2-minute little video. But
yeah, I did that a while that was a while ago. So
I
don't
heard
blame you for forgetting
that you want to argue about A-1 or something.
Hey man, it's a discussion, yeah.
All right, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, we'll discuss, man.
So what is there to discuss?
Well, I mean, okay. I would first ask, what's your stance on the studio as of today? You said a lot of stuff in the past, and
it's been a very long time since A-1 Pictures made a TV anime that I enjoyed at all. Let's put it that way. And as a result, I am not a fan of the studio. And in fact, most of what they've made is stuff that I outright do not like. To such an extent, with such consistency that for me, it is it is to the point that I would complain about them by name. That they have made so many shows that I hate that it's kind of incredible.
Okay. Well, I would first ask you, this is a vague memory, what's your thoughts on Occultic 9? Because I remember hearing that you were a fan of that.
I did enjoy Occultic 9 all the way through. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list of shows right now to just abreast myself on they've made a lot of fucking shows.
Yeah, they're a very very prolific studio. That's due probably in part to how they kind of run themselves, but yeah. So yeah, is there anything else in their I would say their last 2 years that have been something that you've thought of as better than bad?
I mean, I'm looking at the list. The stuff that I've enjoyed, I mean, better than bad, I would say Interviews with Monster Girls is an okay show. Occultic 9 is pretty good. None of these I'm a huge, enormous fan of or anything. They're just shows that I can watch and not want to kill myself. Nanoha Vivid is a fun time if you're a Nanoha fan or just a lolicon, then I highly recommend. And before that, it's all the way back to fucking Suritama in 2012. Except for a couple of movies. They made the the big first grader and the small second grader, and that was a couple years ago. That was 4 years ago. Oki Ichinensei Tochi-san and Ninensei is the Japanese title of that. But
oh, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was one of the young animator training project videos.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, it's really cute. Yeah,
and also Dokusei was excellent from.
Dokusei is a very is a very, very well done film. I'm hard pressed to find much shonen ai that can really compare, if there is anything that compares.
I've never seen something that compares personally, but and with something like that though, I also look at it and I think this is very even though this is a good A1 Pictures show, it is so not at all indicative of what is usually the case with their shows. And I think most of what makes it good involves the fact the director is an ex-guy in X staff, essentially.
Well, I mean, not to demerit that at all. I think that that they were able to get someone like Shoko Nakamura on the project was something that, it stems more from the fact that
they're friends with Trigger and everything, and a lot of
collaboration. The first thing that Trigger did was one of the episodes of Idolmaster.
Well, yeah, Idolmaster, Black Rock Shooter, they've been involved for sure. Or did Black Rock Shooter though, didn't they? Or who did the TV show of that? It might have been.
I forget, man.
Me too, and I don't care.
I can. Yeah.
Well, that's my stance. What's your stance? How are you feeling? What if obviously you don't feel the same way I do, or else this would not be a debate.
Well, I think that okay, so in terms of the current landscape of studios that output stuff and on a regular basis, I think that A1 is personally, I think they're pretty unrivaled in the consistency, and I also think they're pretty unrivaled.
They are definitely unrivaled in consistency. No one has made as many awful shows as they have in the last 10 years. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
They own the market on terrible anime. That's definitely
you twisted our words around, man. I don't like that. What I'm trying to say is that their shows are generally well produced.
I completely disagree, and you will have to show me facts and figures and studies and lots of evidence in order for me to agree with you. Because I've already done that. I've compiled the evidence of the anti-A1. I made a whole fucking 90-hour fucking YouTube series about it, but I've not seen any evidence to the contrary.
If you're talking about the Asterisk War video series, that is one series.
But it speaks for. I mean, if you haven't seen my Asterisk War videos, they're not really about the Asterisk War. They're they're about A1 Pictures. They're about the light novel, anime adaptation rather, Scourge. And I think that most of what I say about that show can broadly apply to a lot of what they've done. Obviously, not a lot of their shows are as bad as the Asterisk War, because that one's pretty bottom tier, but some of them are. And I don't think anything they've made in the last since Welcome to the Space Show was a really something where the production made me go wow, they really put a lot of fucking they did it up real good with that one.
They did do a good job with that series. That movie. That movie had some really talented individuals. A few of the people you don't really see those people at all nowadays. So it was kind of shocking to get some of those names. Well, I haven't seen that video series since it concluded, but I do remember you bringing up something about how the designs of A1 shows seem to have this very, very they have a
template almost.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. I'm going to be pulling from a lot of different shows, but I mean, okay, I don't really think they have much. I don't think their designs look really very similar on all these projects. I think that's more because some character designers come back to the studio quite frequently, but
Sure.
I mean, in general, a lot of their shows look pretty different.
I don't agree. I think there's an alarming number of shows where I mean, for what it's worth, if you put on an A1 Pictures show, like, I'm going to say 60 or 70% of the time, I could tell it's A1 in a couple minutes. And it's like just the way that the characters look, the way that the assets look, like the backgrounds, like just a lot of stuff feels very stock, especially their new show Slow Start. That show, like, image 1 is like a picture of a fucking apartment building that like literally looks like it was just a CGI asset that you could just like buy in an asset pack and throw it in your anime, you know? Like that's the way that a lot of their shows look to me. It's just this very, and I'm not saying that all of them are like that. Obviously a show like Grimgar, that's not like, you know, stock assets or anything like that. And they definitely put a lot of effort into that show, though personally I think that I can't stand that director's style. So even when A1 has tried, like, I'm not saying they never try. I'm not saying that none of the shows they've made have attempted to be a good show, but they have all failed. And that's how I generally feel about that.
My question is, have you finished Grimgar?
No, I did not make it that far into Grimgar.
Okay. Well, I like personally, I think Grimgar is like a really, I think it's a really interesting series, and I think that I believe the director was Ryosuke Nakamura. I could be wrong about that one. He was like
yes, you have it.
Ex Madhouse. He left Madhouse when like Maruyama did, and he kind of came over to A1, and he did some boards here and there. But yeah, I think that's his name. Could be wrong.
It. I'm like on the Wikipedia page right now for A1. I'm just like clicking on everything as we bring it up. But yeah, it's Ryosuke Nakamura. He also directed Ayura, the short series, Aoi Bungaku episodes 9 and 10, bunch of other shit.
He did a movie over at Sunrise, I believe.
Yeah, and that movie is fucking awful. That is Psychic School Wars.
It's so bad. Psychic School Wars, man. That's what I've dropped very few movies midway through the movie. That is one of them.
It's
movie is so bad. Holy shit.
It's very strange and confusing. But like what got to me the most, and he also directed Morio no Hako, which was with Madhouse, and I was way into that show when it first started airing, and I made it 4 episodes in and nothing ever made sense, so I stopped watching it. But yeah, that the case with Grimgar, I just felt that like while it was interesting what they were trying to do, like stylistically with the visuals, I felt like they all clashed. Like I thought the characters didn't look good on the backgrounds. I don't like that director's way of doing. And I don't know. I mean, obviously he doesn't animate the show himself, but everything he's done has this particular animation style where characters just move too much. Like everyone's moving all the time, and it's really like it's got like action animation on average stuff. Like a kid. In episode 1 of Grimgar, there's a part where they're sitting on the bed and the kid's like just swinging his foot back and forth, but it's animated in this like jumpy, actiony way that I was just like, that's distracting, you know? Like I don't need to look at this. Well, I also hate feet, but that could have to do with it, you know?
Well, personally, I like with a show like Grimgar, I think that like pretty quickly the show finds its kind of rhythm, and I think that like the early episodes, I would say up to like episode 3 or 4, it feels like the show doesn't really kind of have a grounding of what it was really kind of going for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say something similar for something like Darling in the Franxx, that's which is going on right now. I feel like Darling in the Franxx didn't really find its footing till like around episode 5 when Noriko Takao really kind of set the bar high for the upcoming episodes, which I feel like they've kind of kept that level of intrigue from that episode. But back on the Grimgar, I think that like that show. Do you mind if I spoil anything?
I don't give a fuck.
Okay. So their party leader, like in the early episodes, dies.
I knew that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, from that point on in the series, like the series uses that death as a goalpost, essentially, to kind of create a very interesting like drama between the people in the party and the new member in the party, and they kind of slowly build up to this like very nice conclusion where the protagonist Haruto, I believe his name was, is he kind of finds his way to become, he finds his own way to become like a leader essentially in this party. And I think that when you watch the early episodes, you don't really get a feel for that, and I don't think that like you could really make the claim that like sure, I would agree with you. And also I think that the animation in that series, like when it dips, like it dips for a bit. It picks really hard back up at the end, but when it dips, it's a very like all those things about like the movement feeling like it's using like techniques you'd use for action animation kind of feel like moot points, because they're not really, it doesn't really do that for a lot of the series. In fact, it really only does that from like after episode 2, I would say. It only does that like for very emotional scenes where it would call for something like that.
So when we're judging a show, we should pretend the first 2 episodes don't exist.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that. I'm just
said
saying
it was a moot
point.
point, but it's not a moot point. It was a point for the first 2 episodes. It just stops being a point at some point in the show.
Yeah,
but if you were to rewatch the series,
early.
You would still see those 2 episodes and be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot it was like this," you know. Like for me, if I can't.
Feel what, I don't know. Like,
look, it's hard for me to listen.
Doesn't have that.
Anytime somebody tells me that like this show gets dramatically better later, it's hard for me to really run with that, because of the fact that the way I see it, if you made it that far in the show, you already liked it more than I did. Like, if you made it past episode 1,
that's not necessarily
you
true.
already liked the show enough more that you were able, like, curious to watch another episode. I was not. I hated episode 1. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. This has nothing to do with my taste. It's nothing to do with my interest. You know?
I mean, I've heard you say that before, and I think that's pretty silly. Like, that's just you're doing an assumption that somebody who's watching a series is enjoying the series for everything it has. I was watching the series just because I thought that the backgrounds looked nice, and I also thought that like I liked the designs of the series.
Well, that's enough to carry you through. I don't like the designs of the background. So where does that leave me? Like, what am I supposed to cling to for the next few episodes while I wait for it to get good? You know, if I don't really care about it.
I've watched shows myself that I don't know. I've watched shows myself that I liked nothing, and I continued watching till the end.
Well, that's like
I can finish the series.
That is some true anime fan shit right there that I try not to engage with. I've tried to break off that part of my life that just keeps watching a show. Because, I mean, I've seen a lot of 6 out of 10 anime. You know, like when I got into really marathoning shows back in 2007 when I found out about like fan subs and shit, you know, I would just marathon shit like deers, and it'd be like you watch episode 1 and you're like, this seems stupid, let's see if it gets better, and then you make it to the end and you're like, well, I could have been watching, I don't know, Martian Successor to Nesco. That's the first show that came to my head that I wanted to watch at the time. So when I watch a show like Grimgar and I see the first episode and I'm like, nothing about this appeals to me, I would just walk away, you know, and find something that after episode 1 does immediately appeal to me, and I'm like, all right, let's finish that show, you know. I'm not trying to say that like A1 shows are without merit or that there's not a good reason for other people to like them. Even Sword Art Online, there's lots of great reasons to like that show, but it is definitely not for me. And like everything I've heard about Grimgar, I've read all the spoilers. A lot of my friends watched the whole show because they were interested. And, you know, the people with tastes similar to me didn't like it. So I thought, all right, that's enough reason for me. Like, if somebody who was like, oh, I have the same taste as Digibro and Grimgar is great, I'd be like, well, it sounds like I need to give it another shot, you know? But there's been no such case.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
Anywho, that's enough about Grimgar, I guess. Oh, you know what's funny is you talking about it, though, of talking about the plot, made me realize that Grimgar is actually a ripoff of my Sword Art Online rewrite that I did 2 years ago. Because I was working on
I'm fairly certain that the original material of Grimgar was coming out before then.
No. When they made the anime, they ripped off my Sword Art Online rewrite. because I said in my rewrite I had it so the blue-haired guy Diaval, who dies in episode 2, I was gonna rewrite him to be a Kamina figure who dies in like episode 6, and it lets Kirito become a badass, like or he has to first he like has to go off on his own and be like, oh, I'm hurt because someone I love died, but then he'll eventually like become the leader himself. So yeah, I guess go watch Grimgar if you want to see how I would rewrite Sword Art Online or something.
Well, I mean, the only thing that Grimgar's anime, to my knowledge, shuffles around. Also, Grimgar did come out in 2016, which was 2 years ago. So,
yeah, I don't actually remember what time of year I wrote this. I'm looking at Reddit where I posted this thing, and it just says 2 years ago. It doesn't say when 2 years ago. I thought it was in the summer of 2015, though.
But yeah.
Also, I'm joking, so it's completely.
Yeah. No, I get you. Grimgar, from what I know, just shuffles around some points in the final arc of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a lot more cohesive. Like it takes the original material and it makes it more dramatic for, like, I guess because they weren't really expecting to make a second season. And they make it more like there's some scenes in the novels that when you watch it in the show, I'm kind of like wondering how the novel pulled that off, because it makes more sense the way that they set it up dramatically for the characters. But yeah, enough about Grimgar. So is there any like show that you what you were gonna say, did you?
Oh, just that we have like 1,000 questions if we want to just answer questions about this.
Okay, I'm down to answer a question or two.
Joe.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so first question is, let's start off with an easier one. Of A-1 Pictures' original works, this has been asked by Complexity with numerous vowels spelled with numbers. Of A-1 Pictures' original works, which ones have your favorite characters?
Of their original works, which ones have... Well, let me Control F the word original on this page.
So I'll take the reins for this one first, because I do have an answer.
Sora no Oto.
I think that, I was actually going to bring up that. I think the protagonist of that is pretty solid. But the characters I would say that I probably like the most is let's see, what was his name again?
Which show?
Quality Code. And the guy's name is
You watched more than
Kasumi.
one episode of Quality Code? That's surprising. I didn't know anybody
watched the whole series. I watched the whole series. That's a great example of a show that I walked into and I hated the first episode.
Yeah.
But I continued.
How did it go?
It ended up really, okay, so the first episode is more of, okay, so you know how, like, you've made videos, like, talking about shows like Asterisk War and making videos like SAO and stuff, and making, like, so it feels like that, like, Quality Code was made with the intention to, like, kind of fool you with, like, these characters that, like, kind of come off, like, the main character is supposed to be kind of like a Tatsuya, kind of like from Mahoka kind of guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got this power, and like everyone's broken, and they could beat all these like weird, like, alien things up, right?
Yeah. And
so the show kind of starts going on its course, and the main character's like sister dies, right?
Right.
And so from that point on in the series, the show slowly starts like unraveling its true nature, which is essentially that, like, humanity's on the fringe of destruction, and that aliens have kind of come onto this planet, and the aliens that they're killing in the first episode are actually the remnants of humanity resisting the aliens.
Kind of like wasn't that like the plot twist in Martian's Successor to Desco, the show I mentioned earlier, where like the people they were fighting all along were just like they thought it was like robots or something, but it turned out it was actually just like another race or something like that of people who had gone to Venus or some shit. Like,
it's similar to that, but I think it's a little bit more what's the word?
Or even just Gundam, I guess, is kind of.
It's a little bit different because the people they end up like fighting are like people who are like their parents,
right?
So like when they start like essentially like dying, which is it's more of them getting like pulled out of this like the system where they're being like souped up by these aliens with these like with their weapons and pretty much being told to like watch over their man posts and stuff. So like they slowly start breaking like the main characters start like getting out of it, and then eventually the main character gets out of it, and like
so they're in like a simulation.
They're in reality, right?
Okay,
but they have like a chip on the back of them, and that like pretty much produces this mildly like an illusion essentially of reality that like
whoa, so they're like in an augmented reality basically.
Yeah, essentially an augmented reality.
Okay, so wait, how much of what they're perceiving is real? Are they actually fighting aliens, or
they're fighting humans?
Okay, but they perceive it as aliens.
Yeah, they perceive the alien. So essentially what they're doing is they're using the aliens' weapons to essentially destroy their like, because they're their parents.
Yeah.
Because this war breaks out.
So they're essentially the kids are mind controlled by aliens to try to kill everybody, all the humans.
Yes.
And the humans who are like literally just the previous generation are like, oh shit, our kids are fucking aliens, we gotta kill them all. Yeah,
right? That's exactly, it's like, whoa, wait, you wouldn't really expect a show that opens off like Quality of Code with like, you know, like your Tatsuya guy as the protagonist killing things with like no problem for the most part, to be killing people that could potentially be somebody that his friend is related to, right?
Right.
And so there's an interesting twist where one of the characters turns on them after realizing the situation because they've been brought up by these aliens.
Right.
And so they're like, why you didn't bring me up, even though we're from the same species, why must I fight with you? So they kind of turn on him when they're like trying to enact this plan to try to take over this post.
Right.
To like get the kids out of the system. And the show is like that sounds like really ambitious to you, right? Like
I would say it sounds conceptually neat is how I would describe it.
Okay. Well, that show like had a really troubled production, but I feel that they like you know, Aniplex and by extension A-1 Pictures, they tried to make it work, but it really didn't, man.
I just thought that show just looked writing wise it shit. Like visually it was very bad. You know, at least the first episode was, from what I again didn't continue it because I was like, well, this looks like shit. I'm not going to watch this for 12 whole episodes, you know.
Well, it falls pretty hard. That show is really it's kind of sad to watch because it's
like you're watching an underdog and then he starts to succeed and then just gets killed, is what you're saying. Right?
Well, no, the writing of the show is like very it gets very clear and consistent. Like there's no part of the show where I didn't understand the story beats, but I would say that visually the show is
I think that should be like the minimum bar, by the way, is I understood the story. Like that should, it's sad that is like average, like oh, well, at least I understood the story. It wasn't like most anime where I don't even know what's going on, you know? Like, it's unfortunate to be in a situation where that is something worth praising.
Well, it's more like, okay, yeah, you can have that. So, it's actually pretty interesting.
Start moving on to the next question here.
Okay, I'll quickly wrap up this point. So the director was somebody who he was pretty like new to the industry. Well, not new to the industry. He was new to direction, like series direction, because like he's been working on Madhouse shows for years upon years. His directorial debut was like what's it called? Supersonico the Animation, which if you've seen that show, that it's really depressing. Like, so like Quality of Code with like that concept seems like him trying to like pull this off and like, you know, get his name on the radar, and like he's actually slated to be the director of Steins Gate Zero, so that's gonna be fun.
This guy has a really weird career. Like, he really was just a Madhouse guy, and then suddenly directs Quality of Code out of nowhere. Like, he didn't do a bunch of A1 work before that. It's literally just
he didn't.
That's fucking strange.
Well, he did Supersonico the Animation, which was also not Madhouse, but yeah.
Right.
All right.
But all right.
Oh, sorry. Feel free to have the last thing, and then I'll move on.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I had nothing left.
Next question is by Lachlan. Projects such as Eromanga Sensei and Fate Apocrypha, distasteful as you may find them, allowed for the showcasing and subsequent raising in profile of a large number of exciting, extremely talented up-and-coming animators. How much value does A1's role in creating productions that fairly consistently draw in so much talent and that have to you?
Okay. Digi, if can I
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I actually find it funny that Lachlan actually asked that question, because I was going to bring that up at some point. So, Digi, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Before you answer the question. So, have you seen, or at least aware, like you're aware of it? Have you seen Tetsu and Birdie Decode?
Yes, I saw the whole first season of that.
Oh, not the second. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I want to watch. I've seen a lot of the fight scenes from the second, just from watching as many Sakuga AMVs as I have. But I like the first season. I don't think A1. My problems with them do not begin until 2012. Like I was actually a huge fan of A1 Studio or A1 Pictures when they first came out, because everything they did was super interesting. Like, I mean, aside from like the Persona show, like their first show, like that people talked about was...
What's wrong with the Persona show, bro?
Well, I didn't watch. I mean, Persona Trinity Soul. I didn't even.
Yeah, Persona Trinity Soul. I watched it like.
I only saw the first episode of that, and I was really disappointed at the time because I was a huge fan of Persona 3, and it wasn't actually like the story of the game. So I was just like, oh, this is. I don't know what the hell this is. You know,
it's an anime. It was an anime original Persona that was using Persona 3 as a kind of like jumping off point.
Yeah. But I ended up watching like well, okay, not that I watched it, but like Okiku Furikabute was like a great sports series. Birdie the Mighty Decode is really entertaining. Birdie 2, crazy fight scenes. You know, they had Sound of the Sky, which was fucking one of my was my favorite show of 2010 at the time that it came out. You know, and even the stuff that they did that didn't come out amazing was interesting. Like they had Night Raid 1931 and Occult Academy when they were doing the whole Anime no Chikara thing in 2010. And that was all really cool. And I was like super into them. And then they released Fractale, and that was where like the death spiral began in early 2011 when like
it's funny that you bring Anime no Chikara up, man. I was going to bring up that too. So
yeah, no, I loved Anime no Chikara, but like I really see it as that the like utter bombing of Fractale, like, and then but right after that was like Anohana, which did really well, of course. But like this was the period where it was like Fractale came out. Then Anohana, which most people really loved. The people who I was hanging out with, I never ended up finishing the show, even though I did like the early episodes. But like my friends who were watching it were really disappointed with it. And then they made the Blue Exorcist adaptation, and I had been a fan of that manga, and I hated what they did with the anime. Idolmaster came out, that was still pretty good, but then there was Working, which was like a slow decline into madness as I tried to watch all of that. And Suritama was the last show I really liked from them. And then it was Sword Art Online, and everything from that point forward was total garbage. And that was where the nightmare began.
So, just to back to Big Windup, which
Yeah.
just to bring that up. So like I just want to say that a lot of people who are working on the series still kind of regularly come back.
Yeah.
From that time period.
It's unfortunate they don't
working
get
on
to
these
do anything
shows.
good anymore. It'd be nice if
that's
they got another
debatable.
good show to involve themselves with.
Well, I mean, like you did say you liked the Cultic 9.
Yeah, that was all right.
A lot of
I enjoyed Occultic 9 enough. It was not painful. Although, it has... I would say anyone could recognize that show has big pacing issues. That is, I don't think anyone would contest with that, because that shit gets crazy in the second half, where they just kind of round up the whole plot as fast as they can. But nonetheless, it is...
I think that's more about the spirit of the series, though. I think that,
it makes sense.
I think that
I
fits
didn't
with
hate it.
the kind of, some of the ideas that, the kind of series plays around with, but, I guess to each their own.
I just think we could have probably marinated in that world a little longer and not tried to have so many exposition scenes back to back towards the back end of the series. I am definitely not a fan of having to sit through a long exposition scene ever, and A1 shows have a strong tendency towards those. Coincidentally,
look,
okay,
anime in general seems to have a lot of exposition scenes as well. I don't know about you, but have you seen Beatless? That show is...
I try not.
That show's truncated with exposition.
But the thing about A1 shows, and I want to make this very clear, because a lot of people seem to think that I think that A1 is that I don't understand that people work there and that it's not just a literal machine that makes anime. But it's just, I've never been able to explain exactly what the problem is, because it's amazing to me that I think the scripts of every A1 show just happen to be terrible. And I don't know why. It's not the same writers. It's not the same people. I don't think there's any real logic behind it. And that's why when I talk about A1, I always say it feels like it's just the studio. Who else can I blame? If everything they do is bad, who else can I blame but the studio themselves, It's I don't think they all fuck up in the same ways. I don't think...
Well, I mean, I think that, as somebody who's, put out, because you're pretty, regardless of how you look at it, you have a pretty big influence on what people will say to each other and what people, overall kind of think in the community. So, I think that when, back when you made your original claims very clearly about it, A1, that's completely fine that you didn't have that thought in your head. But I think now that, maybe a video, on your main channel, because I know this was on your After Dark channel, you brought up Occultic 9 being a show you liked, making a video talking about, how you like that show and how, while you personally don't like most of A1's output, that shouldn't really stop the, people from walking into these shows with,
if you think that because... I just want to let everybody know, if you think that because Digibro doesn't like A1 shows, you're not allowed to watch them, you are fucking stupid. And you need to get your shit together. Grow up.
That's not what I'm trying to... that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just more when, there's a it certainly probably wasn't you, but, you helped kind of foster the a current standing in the community where A1 kind of has this odd distaste.
Good.
Even
I'm glad.
I hope that's not a very good thing. It's hard to make anime, man.
Oh, it's hard to make. It's hard to make a good anime, and that's why no one's doing it. Because if you fucking have to put in that much time and effort and work, and I'm not saying that people individually don't. And this is another thing. I want to break this down real quick because I know a bunch of fucking people are going to jump on me for this, and especially in this community of Pause and Select fans. That when I say that they're not putting effort in, I don't mean individual people. I mean a collective human effort. Are there 100 people making the show or 5? That is a difference in the amount of effort that has been put into the show, not by the individuals. And so when I say that A1 shows are low effort, I don't mean people are putting low effort in. Everyone involved in the show is busting their ass. Everyone in the industry is busting their ass. But how much was put, how much were they allowed to do? How far were they allowed to go? How long could they work on it? How perfect were they allowed to make it? you know, and if you're cranking out shows for a season, probably not that much, you know.
That you're kind of thinking about A1 as like a studio that is like in a more classical sense where like it's the same.
Oh, I know they're not like that. I know it's just like a 5 fucking producers or whatever the hell. But like those dudes could put more into it. Like instead of A1 having the policy of we're going to fund 4 shows a season, they could have the policy of we'll fund 1 show a year. You know, but that's not the way they operate.
They okay, that would be really like cuz you do know like A1's roots, right? Like you know that
they're a part of Aniplex. Just like a sort of a sub. They're just Aniplex's like.
Yeah, like the Aniplex is like animation producing like subsidiary kind of essentially.
Right.
So I don't know. It just seems a little odd. Like,
I mean, are you saying don't blame A1, blame Aniplex? Because I can do that too, but Aniplex also funds a lot of amazing anime because they also give money to Shaft, and Shaft makes amazing shows, and Trigger makes amazing shows, and like all these people work with Aniplex. Somehow it's only their own studio that sucks shit. And it's like, clearly Aniplex is not the only problem, because if Aniplex can make if they can fund great shows, then maybe they treat A1 badly. I don't know. I mean, in the end, all these shows are successful, so you got to take all this with a grain of salt. Like, if people are agreeing with me, it's only insofar as they're like online having debates about this shit. But I don't think my opinions on A1 have a significant impact on like how popular these fucking shows are, you know?
Well, I would argue that you talking about some of these series has given them more popularity.
Oh yeah, I would say Asterisk War probably is even bigger because of me than it would have been otherwise. But
I would agree with that.
But like some of this stuff, like sometimes people make it out. And I'm not blaming Lachlan for this, because she made the videos how Digibro killed an anime, but it was just about like a minute difference in mal score, and the title is mostly clickbait. But like there are some people who act as though I like tarnished forever the reputation of Sword Art Online. And like the other day I was in a fucking Spencer's at the mall, and they played the SAO theme song, and I was like, this show is unstoppably huge. Like I didn't do anything to this show, you know? It is always going to be popular, and if there is now just like it's harder to like the show openly because some people might shit on you for liking it, then like if anything I feel like that opposition force needs to exist so that this shit can't take over culture, you know?
Yes. Okay. Well,
because I think a lot of people in the in like the Sakuga community, a lot of the people who are mad at me for talking shit about A1, it's because they want to support everybody. They're like, it's the anime industry, we got to support them. And I'm like, no, fuck it. Like, most of the industry is making bad decisions. Most of them deserve to go. You know, like, let's whittle it down. Fuck A1. Take all those people and put them somewhere else. Give them to other studios. You know, like, fucking set up a habitation at KyoAni. Just take them all in. Like refugees leaving Syria. You know, like, put them take them all out of A1 and put them in KyoAni and just like hand them a coffee and a blanket and like let them relax for a little while they figure out what the hell they're going to animate with their actual passion, you know?
Well, I mean, that's like, okay, the last thing you said there is to bring that up. Like, are you trying to say that people who are working at A1, you know, are using their full passion on these projects?
I'm saying that
to bring up a series or like a movie. Actually, let's bring up a series. Masashi Yoshihama, you know, great director. He put out a series back in 2012. You might know it. It's called Shinsekai Yori.
Yeah, I hate that show.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, first off, I'm just curious as why you hate the show. Like,
first of all, it's the worst looking show ever. The character designs look like total dog shit.
Whoa, calm down there. How is it the worst looking show ever, bro?
First of all,
you got eyes?
I don't think I've ever hated character designs more than I hate the character designs of Shinsekai Yori. I don't like the background art. I don't like the way
wait a second. Let's just break this down because like I'm just like I can't fathom this. So why? What about these designs are like the worst
they're just
thing you've ever seen?
Boring, vacant fucking, they look like nothing. They're no. Would you remember any of these characters? I guess you would, because they're so fucking weird that they're actually like distinct in that they are so weird looking.
Okay,
but...
so I have I just a side point. You said this is like the worst looking show ever. Like, have you seen Nora? Like that
have I seen what?
Nora, like it's an OVA.
Oh, I don't think so.
Made back in like the I believe it's Nora. It's a old ass OVA from the 80s, and it's really not.
Where have I seen this before? This fucking cover art looks mad familiar to me, and I don't know why. I might have just like seen this at a Barnes and Noble or something like that.
Just because I was remembering it.
The character designs look better than the character designs in Shinsekai Yori, at least. Wait, is this like a newer version? I think there might have been a more recent... Because this looks recent, the screen caps I'm seeing.
It probably isn't that, then. But just to go back to an older point you were bringing up, because I just remembered it.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Oh, this girl's from Noragami. That's why it looks recent. God damn it.
Saint Oni-san and, like, you know, I would say Grand Blue. I would bring up, like, let's see, some of the characters, a lot of characters in Grand Crest Senki. They look pretty different from each other, and they all look pretty different from, you know, the traditional A1 mold. And I would go as far as to say, like, I think that like they're maybe the main character, like the design sense in Blue Exorcist is very different from something like Boring Girlfriend and Fate Apocrypha.
Don't get me wrong. I am not trying to say that every A1 show fits the mold. Like I said, about 60% of them, if you look at them, you can tell. You know,
I mean, I just named off like a bunch of shows that just came out within like the past year. So,
I mean, maybe they're doing
outside of Saint Oni-san. So
maybe they're mixing up their style a little better now. I don't know. I have not been re-updating my thoughts on A1 Pictures because I haven't watched one of their shows in years, and that's why I don't talk about them anymore. It's kind of funny actually.
You did bring up how you watched Slow Start though.
I watched like 5 minutes of Slow Start. And about 10 minutes of Darling in the Franxx. For me, it's no big deal. I feel like a lot of people have this image of me like stewing in my room, fucking ranting at a giant like ziggurat of A1 Pictures that I don't know why I said ziggurat. What am I thinking of? What's the word I'm looking for? Of like a thing that you look at and stew with hate. Anyways, people think I like sit here like shitting on A1 Pictures all the time, but I haven't even really talked about them in a couple years just because like I don't care anymore. I don't watch their shows. I don't really watch any current anime. I don't really even like modern anime that much right now. So like it's not really a matter of A1. It's like everyone's failing me, you know?
I just want to ask that like you have like videos on your like I think it's like your 4th channel, but like where you watch like airing anime.
Yeah.
So like what is that?
I mean, that was just like a fun little show to marathon all of the current stuff, like first episodes. But like, I mean, we dropped almost everything, so.
Okay. I was just asking for clarification. I was just confused.
Yeah, and also to clarify, like currently airing Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody from Silverlink and Connect. Worse than anything A1's ever done. So A1's not even the worst studio around right now. I actually think almost like, I mean, okay, A1's making still really boring shit that I don't care about this season. But like, aside from them, you know, Death March is one of the worst things I've ever sat through. I actually watched the whole first episode of that just because I was like so stunned by how bad it was. I felt the need to like pursue it all the way. fucking possibly worse, possibly much worse than A1 these days is fucking Brains Base. Everything they make is garbage now. Like, I don't know what the hell happened to that studio. Everybody left.
They don't make a whole lot nowadays either. So
they've got a show like almost every season though. Like,
they
don't. Brains Base?
They don't. Oh. They don't have almost a show every season. Maybe you're thinking about studio. I forget how to pronounce their name.
I mean, I'm looking at they had 4 shows last season. They had 4 shows. They had not last season, the year before. Never mind. They're dead now. They died in 2017. It looks like, but back in 2016, they were shitting it up real big. It looks like. But yeah, they're not making much anymore.
Classic. It's a modern classic, honestly. Android.
Oh no. The most disappointing anime of last year was probably Cheer Boys for me, because I liked the first episode a lot, and by episode 3 it was unwatchable. Like, the production was just so bad, it was kind of unbelievable.
I actually was there too. I watched the first episode and I liked it too. So, you're not really alone there.
Yeah.
I ended up dropping the show. So if it ever got good again,
I watched the first 3 and like I loved the first episode, and by episode 3 I was like, I actually can't watch this anymore. Like, this is really depressing. It's actually that bad. And Brainspace is another studio that I really loved back in the day, but I think in their case everybody just left to go do other shit. Like
a lot of their
Shuka.
Like, I was gonna bring that up. But I think that okay. So to go back to A1, there's a lot of things like to bring up Darling and the Franxx and Grand Crest, which are and also Slow Star. I haven't really seen the new season of Taizai, so I can't really comment on that. But there's a bunch of things and like a bunch of moments where normally you would have like those things in other series. Like I'll point out Grand Crest. There was like a scene pretty early in where they had a bunch of people in this like hall, I guess, and it was like the opening scene, I guess. And all those people were hand drawn for that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
In a similar scene by like a studio like Lydon Films and like something like Arsenal, they would have something like that fully CG. Like all the people in the room would have been CG.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like impressed. If you're saying, were they animated?
They weren't like they. Some of them were moving, but like most of them were like there was a bunch of shots that were going.
Are you talking about this like carnival that's going? I'm looking at the episode right now. Are you talking about like there's like people in the streets? Because I'm looking at it. There's a bunch of hand drawn people. I mean, they're fine, I guess. Cool. They didn't have to use CG. That's nice. I mean, I'll give them credit for that. The CG is really bad right now. Like, CG is everywhere, and this season especially, it's been like kind of a nightmare. So,
I mean, Darling and the Franxx has good CG. I don't know.
I didn't make it. I haven't watched enough Darling and the Franxx to see the CG in that show.
You did. If you watch the first 5, it's in the first minute, man.
Oh, is it? Okay. I don't remember because
Okay, so to if you remember the scene where the main character Hiro is he's looking outside of the glass play season. They pan out of him and then they go up to 02 in the helicopter thing that she's in.
I'm watching the first episode.
That's a CG camera movement. So
okay, I see what you're saying.
And like that building is CG. So and also thing to note is that they have Kara and A1 Pictures, and like with episode 6, they added in a different person.
Did you mean Trigger
as well.
in A1 Pictures? Because you said Kara.
I said Kara. For the CG, Kara was in charge of the CG.
Okay.
But yeah. Because of also this the show was doing like the show got pushed up a season, so okay. I would assume the show is going pretty well for the studio. Yeah, I would say that. Well, I don't think that most shows are airing finished, and not every show is Pop Team Epic, but I'm sure that they're like very ahead of the bar of where they need to be.
It sounds, I mean, they fucking pre-planned this show like crazy. Like, the way I see it, Darling in the Franxx is like a pre-made event of a show. It's like a show that they went, let's go ahead and like market the living fuck out of this and spend a lot of time on it, and everyone will know about it, and that's a good idea. They did a good job of that because everyone's talking about it, and yeah, that's probably how you should make anime. I mean,
but that is, like a lot of the bulk of the show has been like outside of the most recent episode and 2 episodes, so 3 episodes. All those episodes have been handled by A1 Pictures. So
okay,
I mean, it's like saying that A1 Pictures is like this. They haven't. There's not all this manpower. Like, Darling in the Franxx has a ton of manpower in terms of sheer artists. You have like everybody who is anybody at A1 Pictures and has done exceptional work at the studio is appearing or has already appeared on episodes of Darling in the Franxx.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of directors, and I'm surprised by some of the names coming up for episode directors.
Yeah, like, for the most recent episode, Tensai Okamura, like, whoa, what the hell is that guy doing here? I thought he didn't even do, the second season of, Blue Exorcist, so I actually thought he was clocking out of A1, but it appears like he came back for that.
Hey, when you need work, you need work, you know?
Same thing with Yasuhiro Ire appearing in something like Fate Apocrypha, and there's a bunch of people just appearing on these
such a fucking
big
waste. Such a huge waste.
His episode was crazy good.
Remember,
and,
well, I mean, which show was that you said he?
Fate Apocrypha.
Okay.
Last year. On the subject of Ire or EDA,
I refuse to believe an episode of Fate Apocrypha was crazy good. By the way, because I watched 3 episodes of that show, and that was a total nightmare. But
I mean, there's the episode that a lot of people like to bring up.
I don't even know which one. I literally have only seen the first 3, and I didn't look at anything about it after that. I don't care about Fate, so.
Okay, that's fair. But this isn't really. That's not written. Fate Apocrypha wasn't written by Nasu, to my knowledge.
Oh no, I just don't care about. Well, first of all, if it had been written by Nasu, it probably wouldn't be as shit as it is. But it's I just don't like any part of the franchise except for Zero, and that's the only one I've really enjoyed.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, like to bring up episode 22 as a really one of the best episodes, if not some people would say, and I would be one of those people. I think that episode 22 of Fate Apocrypha is single-handedly the
2 minutes
strongest
scrolls,
piece of
and then I'm moving on
animation.
to the next question.
All right, you're the man. So yeah, episode 22 was probably one of the strongest episodes of 2017. And
it really speaks to the power of Fate that they got people to make it 22 episodes into the worst show ever made just to find the good part.
Wait a second. I just thought that you said Shinsekai Yori was the worst show ever made, man.
I said it was the worst looking show ever made.
Oh, my bad.
Fate Apocrypha is it's like a 0.1 better looking than Shinsekai Yori. I don't even know if I couldn't complete that sentence in good faith. I'm sorry. That was it's hard to say. It churned my guts a little.
I mean that you've seen 3 episodes of it. Sure, you can have an opinion on it, but it can get better. And I would.
Oh, sure. Just don't listen to anything I have to say about A1. That's fair. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't think anybody should be listening to my opinions on Fate Apocrypha because I don't give a shit about Fate Apocrypha. But I think it's fucking terrible. So if the show gets better later, fine. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. I'm fine with missing stuff that's good. I feel like a lot of people are if I don't fucking watch this show, how will I, what if it turns out to be good and I'll have missed out? What if there was a good episode? And I'm like, that's also true of anime that were made before you were born, and you're not freaking out about how you haven't seen that yet, you know? So, like, to me, I'm okay with, even if it's the best episode of all fucking time, if people are still talking about it 10 years from now, I'll go back and watch it. You know, if, like, it's so good that people actually care 10 years from now, I will be like, holy shit, like, I need to see this episode if people still give a fuck, you know?
Well, I mean, if somebody gave a fuck in 2017 about an episode and they said it was their best, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, you ask them 2 years later, what was your best in 2017? They would still say something about the same unless they saw something that was of equal or better quality.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
I'm not gonna go.
I don't get like, like, you know. I mean,
well, let's say it's the best
way anime discussion goes about right now. Like, things come and go really quickly. So
Yeah.
I think that kind of point is kind of odd.
I choose to not
especially-
participate in that system. I actually think it's disgusting the way that anime just like comes and goes from people, and that they don't spend time. Like, this is why A1 Pictures and like mediocre
But,
content
okay.
is allowed to exist. Is that people
Excuse me.
will just excuse it, you know?
Well, you just said that if people are talking about it 10 years from now, right? And
Yeah.
you just said, like, you just said, I don't participate in that kind of discussion. So if,
I'm saying that the current, like, if you're saying, hold on, let me
like,
take a step
how
back
people
to remember exactly how you phrased that. But say what you said before, so I can remember exactly how I was going
I
to
don't
respond.
remember what I said before. Like, exactly.
My point
like,
is, I don't really like the way that shows come and go. The way that, like, some new thing comes up, like, okay, Erased, big deal, early 2016. Everyone was talking about Erased, and most people were really into it. r/anime was like their big show of the season. Fucking Mother's Basement was crazy about it. You know,
Yeah.
I was really anti-Erased. I was like totally not into the show. I really hated. I forgot that was an A1 Pictures show, so that's relevant.
Yeah. June.
Whoever, no,
Ito.
I don't care. But like I really hated Erased, and while it was airing, it was like number 14 on Mal, like the ratings, you know, like on their list, and it was just like unbelievable how strongly people felt about that show. Well, like clock in a year later, no one's talking about Erased. That show is like, you know, it's fallen way down the rankings on Mal. Like, over time, its reputation is not held up. Because it was fun to watch in the moment for the people who are watching it in the moment, because it's the kind of show that you get hype about and you watch every week, and you try to discuss theories and who did it. And I don't really watch anime that way. I marathon shows. I watch shows that, like, I really hate watching stuff week by week, you know? So for me, like... Sorry. Do you want to say something?
I'm sorry. Well, on the subject of, like, Erased, so, like, okay. How, so if, like, somebody like Jeff, like, I don't know his current stance on Erased, but to my knowledge, he still likes the series.
Yeah.
And, like, I know and I also... I don't, like, remember this vividly, or, like, you know, this might not be, like, this might not be true, but he also, by extension, kind of likes Tomohiko Ito and his, like, some of his other work outside of SAO.
You mean outside of Erased? Or no, you meant outside of same
outside of SAO.
Yeah,
Sort of. He directed Sword Art Online, so
yeah, I forgot.
You know, it's kind of important to remember that.
But it's hard. How am I supposed to keep track of directors who don't do good work? Like, why would I want to know their names?
I mean, Silver Spoon was a good.
I don't like
good
Silver
show.
Spoon.
Okay.
Too much fucking too much outdoorsy worship. Too much animal worship. Or not even animal worship, but like thinking that rustic life is cool. I want to live on a concrete jungle. I don't want to think about farms. Y'all just make my food and get it to me. You know, like I'm not going to sit here and suck the dick. Like, cause that show, all it does is like praise this life. It's like, ooh, it's so cool to eat everything fresh. I'm like, fuck you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you finish both seasons?
No, I only watched 3 episodes of Silver Spoon.
Well, the first 3 episodes aren't really indicative of where the series ends up going.
I don't think the first 3 episodes of anything are necessarily indicative of where the series ends up going. It's indicative of how does it feel What do I like about it? Is it interesting? Do I
Well,
care
I
about
mean,
these
in those
characters?
first
Do
three
I want to see what
episodes-
happens to them? You know?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. That like the series is much more. It's much less, and even in the first 3 episodes, this is prevalent. It's more about their like, what do these characters want to do with their lives? You can see these characters bringing that up, and how Hachiken, the main character,
Mm-hmm.
he's in awe essentially about these people who have figured it out essentially in his eyes, and he's like, how do they have the answers that I don't? After like I've like failed, and I'm here. That like those first 3 episodes established that, and like to say that like the show is about how this rustic life is nice, and how this rustic life is the way you should be eating food.
Okay,
Sure,
well,
those are things in the series.
yeah.
That's not the series is about.
No, that's
And-
not the point of it. Obviously, it's mostly about as you said, the character development and everything. I'm confident that the show is competently made. You know, Hiromu Arakawa is a competent manga author. I'm sure she knows how to write a good story full of character arcs and development.
Yeah, it's very
but
clean.
unfortunately, it's a show about farms and like horses. Thinking horses are okay at all is unfortunately an opinion that show has, and I can't stand by that. Like, I can't stand by a show that is gonna
the main character himself. The main character himself, though, he expresses a distaste towards horses. In
That's
fact,
fair.
calls them smelly and ugly. And
all right, look.
so
I watched the first 3 episodes of Silver Spoon right after I'd broken up with my ex-girlfriend back in 2014, and at the time she was obsessed with horses and made me watch a bunch of shitty horse movies. And so when episode 3 was about horses, I literally was like, I can't watch this. I hate horses more than anything now, and I want nothing to do with them. So that's the real reason I dropped Silver Spoon.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
See, yeah, but yeah, like I mean, like okay, so Silver Spoon to me is a show that it gives you the things early in where it's going to be going, but it like dramatically and tonally, and same thing with another show that A1 has done with one of its other like very prevalent creators at that studio, with what's his name? Fucking hell. It's Sinai Heroine Sodakata.
Sodatekata.
How to Raise Your Boring Girlfriend. Yeah.
How to raise? Oh, what are you talking about with that show? What's your
how the first like structurally those are kind of similar, because the first season kind of presents this like very kind of playful and lighthearted like tone to it, and then the second season it opens off in the same kind of spirit essentially, and it shifts over to a more like dramatic and more arc driven, I guess, like story to like kind of top it all off.
Yeah.
But both of those series, like watching 3 episodes doesn't really give you the picture of where it's it's gonna what its hand has in it. But Silver Spoon, I think is really, really like it's a very cleanly put together series, and I think the only reason why I wouldn't give it a higher rating personally, like why I wouldn't praise it more than I would,
is that it looks like a moving
because,
manga and it's not that entertaining to watch.
No, I think that it adapts itself well into anime very well. I think it uses it pretty well. I would say that the reason why is just because narratively, the show feels like it has a very clean and focused path to get to the ideas and the emotional resting points where it wants to be. And it never feels like it's trying to play, like, risk anything. It feels like it's very, like, here's the line, and it's just going to keep going down straight.
I see.
Which is nice, but, like, when it's playing with, like, really harsh ideas, like, something like, feelings of, like, worth and feelings of, like, like place in the world, like something like consistency and something kind of like, like what's it called? Something like, like predictability of where this will eventually end up being.
1 minute.
It's kind of shit. It's just kind of sad, man. I don't know. Like, I like it. I like it a lot. It's a great series. It's just like,
I love how many of these
like
are like start off with you going like the show this show, what do you think about that one? And I'm like, oh, it sucked. And you're like, well, it's a good show. Unfortunately, it's got all these problems, and it makes me really sad to think about.
Well, no, I like the series. I just finished it. Like, it's a great show. I would recommend it to like almost anybody. Like, yeah. It's a very like it's very
easy to get into. Yeah, I think I saw the first episode of that at Otakon, and that got me to watch 2 more. So like it's definitely
a very
accessible,
cleanly put together series, and I think like it's really hard to get lost when watching the show. Like the show is made very, very precisely, and like I think it's one of the few times I can think of a series where I have like a hard time finding moments where the characters look really like off.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question here.
Works for me.
Okay. Let's see here. In your opinion, how much has A1 Pictures / Aniplex affected the industry, whether good or bad?
I have no metric by which to judge that. Like, I have no fucking idea.
Well, from the stuff that, like, most of this is speculation, and, like, things like, Anime no Chikara coming out when they did. I think they did a pretty big. They've done some pretty big things in the industry.
Was Anime no Chikara like successful at all? Because I kind of had the impression that it was the lack of success of that turned them away from doing like primarily original anime. Because like when they started, they were like mainly original, and like
not necessarily. What they're doing a lot of adaptations. What are you talking about?
I mean, early on they did a lot of original, like comparatively, way more original shows. Like they started
their output has increased, but I don't really think that they've done less original shows.
I mean, I can confirm that that's the case because earlier when I Control F'd original through the entire fucking page trying to figure out which shows were original, I came to that conclusion. I mean, the whole point of Anime no Chikara was that it was supposed to be originally 4 original shows that came out 1 per season all year. Only 3 of them ended up seemingly happening.
I was gonna bring that up.
And I don't think any of them were successful at all. Like, no one fucking cared about those shows. Sora no Oto has, like, over the course of 8 years, slowly developed a cult fan base, but, like, no one cared about Night Raid or Occult Academy at all.
I care about Night Raid. I don't like Occult Academy, though. So one thing I want to bring up before that, is that, I always kind of viewed Fractal as, something that feels like it was supposed to be the 4th show, but I guess I feel like because of the fact that the producers don't really align for that, it's kind of hard to pinpoint that. But it feels so like in line with everything else they have for Anime no Chikara.
I just see Fractal as Yamakan's like a fucking big ego death of sorts. Like he had to experience ego death by way of the internet destroying him from saying that he was going to retire if this show wasn't successful and then making like the worst show of the year, but like I just am inclined to blame everything on him because of that reason. I don't even know how true that is.
Well, I mean, Yamakan has done like very questionable things in the past for series, and actually he on like something like Kanagi, he actually went back for the Blu-ray release, not the Blu-ray release, like the DVD release, and he took because in some of the episodes they went over the drawing count. So he literally went into those episodes and started taking out frames so it would meet the drawing count.
Like
for the home release, like he's kind of a dick. I'm not gonna lie.
Like what? Wait, what do you mean? Like
there were like so he would go. So essentially, what happened is that there's like scenes where like there was like really smooth animation in like these episodes that like he did that too, and in the Blu-ray release there is like less in betweens.
Okay. Weird.
So it's not on ones anymore. So like there would be scenes in the TV broadcast that were on ones that in the home like the Blu-ray release that weren't on ones.
Why?
Because they went over the drawing count. And
what do you mean by the drawing count? Like what is there like a limit to how many drawings can be on a Blu-ray or something? Like
No. Like, okay, so when you're like doing like when you're producing a show,
Uh-huh.
you normally have set things like this is how many things are going to be in this episode,
Right.
and like,
Well,
so when you're funding an anime,
how did they exceed it in the first place? And like, okay, if they had already exceeded it, what was the why reduce the drawing count? Like, what? How does that make it better? Like,
no, he wasn't trying to make it better. He was spiting the episode directors. But it was also partially, it was supposed to be his job to do that, like, to make sure that they don't go over the drawing count for the budget.
And he just failed at that job. And then tried to backpedal and pretend he didn't or something?
It doesn't come off, it comes off more like he's just annoyed at the fact that, like, the animators did that. And,
Yama-kan is the funniest fucking dude in the world. That guy is like the fucking lolcow of the anime fucking like industry. I want a fucking documentary about Yama-kan. Someone please. Someone.
I think that
please.
I don't really. I like Yama-kan. I think he would be actually like a really, if he like, I think that his work is really like varying levels of good to like whatever. Fractal's an exception, obviously, but.
I think he's a guy with a lot of interesting ideas that doesn't know how to like structure them into a TV show.
Yeah,
like he's good at
like,
weird marketing gimmicks and memes and like little things. Like you should have him as an accent, but because he has such a strong personality, I don't think anybody can fucking deal with him.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that I think that he probably would be a lot better as just strictly as somebody who does like episode direction and storyboards. His stuff on earlier projects for A1 where he wasn't directing and like his episodes in these series, like in Persona Trinity Soul, in like the first like 10 or so episodes that come out for that series, I think his episode is obviously like you come out of it, you start up that episode and it's like vehemently different from everything else in the series thus far. And it will be different from anything else in the series.
And he just did storyboarding for that.
He does the storyboarding, yeah. And and it's like you can totally tell it's like Yama-kan. Like it feels like something straight out of like Full Metal Panic Fumofo.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like really interesting to see that episode in like this very depressing show.
But incidentally, we never even addressed Lachlan's actual question.
What was his question again?
Her question was to do with, does it change the way I think of, or that we think of A1 to know that they have like all these animators that they employ? I mean, Joe could read it again, but when it was asked, you kind of had like a related question that you asked me, and then we just totally derailed and never got back to Lachlan's question.
Well, yeah, no, I think it does.
Joe, do you want to reread that so that we can like remember exactly what was asked?
All right. Projects such as Eromanga Sensei and Fate Apocrypha, distasteful as you may find them, allowed for the showcasing and subsequent raising in profile of a large number of exciting, extremely talented up-and-coming animators. How much value does A1's role in creating productions that fairly consistently draw in so much talent, and thus helps foster networking and connections between these people, have to you?
For me, I would say that there's definitely some value in that. Everyone needs a first job at McDonald's, that gets you started, gets your foot in the door, lets people know that you're a hard worker. You get your boss recommends you afterwards to an actual good store, and you go work somewhere that doesn't suck shit. So, I mean, it's important, everyone's gotta get a start, but if you're hanging around, then people start to ask what you're doing with your life,
Well, I mean, like, I think this, like, that question harkens back even further all the way. That's why I brought up Birdie, because, like, I don't know if you're aware of Rio Timo.
Yeah, I am well aware of Rio Timo.
Okay, so I don't know how. Like, are you aware of his, like, his history in the industry, like how he started?
He was a webgen. He's like the webgen animator, right? Like
yeah, that's a good way of looking at him. So to go to all the way up back to 2008, you would go webgen animation was very fledgling. There wasn't really many people, and the people that were around were very like specific. You had your Rio Timo, right?
Yeah.
And you had your Shingo Yamashita and stuff like that, right? So like A1 put, and this is more, I would say this is more due to Kazuki Akane, but in him just liking, him just being attracted to things that are new.
Mm-hmm.
But he put Rio Timo in the role of character designer for the show. And that allowed him to call upon like talents that were like webgen. And so of the first, I guess you could say, one of the first, and like, this is like one of the first major projects that you can look at and see, like, even though there is a ton of talent that are like, very classical, and they've been animating for years upon years, and you can like, point at those people. I think like Birdie is one of the first series that you can see webgen kind of oozing out of it. And it kind of I feel like it sets the precedent for like a lot of the series that A1 would do, where they will call upon the webgen talent, or other studios, because it has this kind of aesthetic that seems to kind of just permeate through all these other series.
I'm inclined to say that like Rio Timo may have like gotten some notoriety from working on Birdie, but that wasn't his first like regular anime he worked on.
Well, no, that wasn't. He started over in Madhouse, but that was his first job as a character designer.
I'm gonna say that if we're gonna credit like someone with giving like Rio Timo a chance, like wouldn't it be like No-Ein? Like wouldn't that be the show that you would like credit with like, hey, they got webgen animators into TV anime, like,
That's true.
I would say that did more than Birdie did for at least for him,
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean,
sorry.
He wasn't character designer on that series, but I mean, he did animation in that show.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't really like make waves. Like that's.
I mean, I heard about him before he did Birdie. I knew about Rio Timo.
Oh.
Like he was kind of famous. Like as soon as he was on TV, he was like talked about. Like he was a big dude.
Well, yeah, his animation is very unique.
Yeah,
so.
and especially on No-Ein, that show's fucking crazy. And
yeah, that show's crazy.
And when I look at a show like No-Ein, I see the actual, like, okay, the director of that is Kazuki Akane, the guy who directed Escaflowne, related heavily to Shinichiro Watanabe. I see this as somebody who probably, I'm not surprised to see him bring a webgen animator, like A1.
Yeah, well, definitely.
I feel like when they came out,
and also it makes a lot of sense to put him in the key animation role because the animation, like the character designer role for Birdie, because he did like so much in Knowing. But I would still go and say, like, even though he did that much, it's still like at the end of the day, a producer can still say that is unacceptable, because those, the people who are like, funding the series at the end of the day can say yes or no. So if they didn't, if they see a man's track record,
are they gonna be like, hey, Kazuki Akane, who's had like some of the most famous anime of all time, we don't like the decisions you've made of who you've put on your show. Like, I would think producers would be sucking that guy's dick. Like, whatever you think's a good idea is a good idea, buddy. You made fucking Escaflowne, and not that No-Ein was a huge success or anything, but like, the guy's been around forever and he knows what he's doing. So like, if he wants to bring in net animators, I don't think the producers are going to be like, you don't know what you're doing to that guy,
I get that, I guess. Yeah. Well, the reason why I would like, again, I would, just to say this, that I think that like Aniplex, it's at the very least, it's notable to say that, like, because I would say that Birdie has that, and there are people on that series that definitely are webgen.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really get his, like, he does, like the big wave that Rio Timo kind of like employs doesn't really show up until like his directorial debut on Yuzuka Quartet.
Mm-hmm.
But like I still think that like working on Birdie and him having this like, you know, all of this like crazy animation, especially in the second season, when the show completely goes full tilt, right? Like,
right.
like you've seen the stuff, so like,
I mean, here's the thing about that though, is that like I said, I used to be a fan of A1. I liked their early work, and I liked Birdie. I talked about that when you asked me last time about it. But like, and I could say I don't credit A1 for Rio Timo at all. I just credit the director. But I mean, I do credit A1. They were an experimental, interesting studio in the early days. Like, yeah, they brought in tons of interesting talent. They had really interesting directors. They had totally unique shows. They were like one of the most interesting fucking studios in the world when they... What the hell just fell? Sorry, something fell in my room. They were like one of the most interesting studios around when they started. But like, since tasting the poison apple, or the what is it called in the fucking Garden of Eden, the stupid snake apple, the Satan apple, after eating the Satan apple with Sword Art Online, they've taken a dark turn, the way I see it.
Well, I mean, in 2012 they already had a profitable year. So I don't know, that seems a little weird, especially since like
a little weird. If you made the most successful anime in the world, you would rip that shit off as hard as you could over and over again.
Well,
you know?
I don't think they have. I think that like there are definitely like anime that they've done that, you know, I don't really think that like, I don't think that was like the thought at all. Like something. You
don't think that after Sword Art Online came out, they went, oh shit, let's make like 12 more of those? Because that's what everyone else in the anime industry did. I mean, even fucking... This, by the way, is not like speculation. This is like industry knowledge. When a good show comes out, everyone copies it. Or a popular show. A good selling show. Fucking Joe Shiraku made fun of Sword Art Online for that reason. That everyone was copying it and, you know, trying to make the same thing happen again. They made fun of Eva, SAO, Madoka, and I don't remember what the fourth show was. But, you know, I think that's common wisdom. It is important to bring up that to go back to the Anime no Chikara question, or like not question, the statement. What was like what you said is like what that was a failure, and like what was like learned from that. Well, there's like an interview, and it's on like Anime News Network, with the CEO of Aniplex, and he talks about Anime no Chikara. And he says in that like projects like Psycho-Pass and Madoka and Anohana were directly like made with the knowledge that they learned from making Anime no Chikara. Well, that's
and
Psycho-Pass? Yeah. What?
Psycho-Pass. Yeah, that was 2012, right?
A Psycho-Pass and Aniplex show?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
you can you can look that up.
It's just it really made my brain jump to hear you say that what they learned from Anime no Chikara informed Psycho-Pass, because I was just like, what? That's a fucking production IG show, and I was real confused for a second. I mean,
you know, Night Raid 1931 had somebody on that project who had deep roots in Standalone Complex and like other IG shows, so yeah. I don't think it would be that much of a jump for them to like go from point A to point B, especially because, you know,
well, it's surprising because if you read what Production IG says about why Psycho-Pass was made, they are like very direct that they were like, we wanted another big sci-fi franchise, you know, like we wanted the next Ghost in the Shell, we wanted the next whatever. So just like, I just had never thought about the even possibility that show could have anything to do with A1. I didn't even know Aniplex had fucking produced Psycho-Pass, but
they're one of the producers.
Yeah, but just to directly answer Lachlan's question before I end up not answering it really at all, I do think that there is. Well, okay, I guess I did answer it with the whole McDonald's thing. But yeah, like I appreciate that A1 has done some good for the world, and I appreciate why like the Sakuga community is so excited about their shows. Where I've given a lot of shit to guys like Kevin on Twitter for the fact that I always say Kevin. I know it's Kevin, but like it's written Kevin, so that way people can search it. Kevin on Twitter will watch a show like the Asterisk War and tweet about all the animators and all the Sakuga, and he'll put the fucking clips in the Twitter. And I appreciate why people get excited about that, but that is not why I watch anime. I do not watch anime just to watch Sakuga clips. Like, they have to be in a show I like. I want to watch, either a movie or a 12 episode or 26 episode or however long show, and just be invested in it overall and for the whole product to be good, and not just to watch a show because maybe something interesting will happen. The plot's kind of interesting or the animation's kind of good. And the real reason that I rally against a show like this is that there is so much great anime out there that is not being watched because people have to watch 4 A1 Picture shows every season, Why does shit keep falling in my fucking room?
I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm of the camp that, Heybot is, criminally underrated series, but I mean, I wouldn't go and say, man, it's all because of these A1 Picture shows that nobody's watching Heybot. It's because it's a kid's show.
Well, it's not just the A1 Picture shows. It's all the shows. It's that there are 60 shows coming out every season, and if you even feel the need to keep up with a few of those, I mean, most people don't have a huge amount of anime time. I think, most anime viewers have time for, hey, on Saturday, I marathon the new episodes of all the new shows. And I just want to go up to those people and tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, you know how some of those shows are mediocre and only a couple things are interesting about them? Cut those out of your diet and go watch an 80s show. Go watch a 90s show. Go watch a classic. Go watch something you haven't seen before. Because there are literally hundreds of great anime that, I don't care who you are, you probably haven't seen. Unless you're one of the... If you haven't seen at least 4,000 shows, there's some shit you haven't seen that's probably worthwhile, and it ain't coming, even if A1 does a show that has a couple interesting things about it, fucking, that is not worth it. That ain't worth your time. There's 4,000 other shows you gotta watch,
Well, I mean, in that 4,000 other shows that you have to watch, how can, maybe an A1 show could be one of those shows that
a few of them are.
Really latch on
a few old A1 shows are,
Well, I mean, they have other series that, they have, for every... man, I don't want to say that.
You almost said for every bad show there's a good show, but that hasn't been a good show in 6 years, so it can't be true.
Whoa, you did say that, just to go back to what you said prior, welcome to... that was...
Occultic 9 is okay.
Occultic 9. I was going to say something else, but Occultic 9.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, tell anybody... that was in my honorable mentions on my top 20 anime of 2017, so I'm not telling people to go watch that show. That show was alright. There were 20 better shows in 2017. Watch all of them first.
Well, so...
Joe, you got another question for us? You asleep? Question? You awake? You alive?
Hell yeah. Alright. Okay, so, let's see here. There's a lot of sort of
you're so fucking loud.
Questions.
Your mic is mad loud, and you've got wind noise in the background. So every time you cut in, it's the funniest shit in the world. You sound like a drunken whirlwind, just blasting through.
Here's my next question on the wind. Okay, let's see here what we got. What would it take for you to change your mind about A1 Pictures?
Who asked?
This has been asked by Spacey Filmer.
What would change my mind if they made good shows?
That's a very dismissive answer to that question.
I mean, that's what would change my mind. If they made good shows, I'd be like, wow, A1 Pictures is good. That's all it takes.
Well, I mean, they can make good shows, they're just not your thing. I don't know.
Well, good, I mean, if it's not good by my definition, then it's not good. My opinion's the only one that matters, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. You know what I'm saying? You know how I feel? You feel me?
It's not a very I have a 6-figure subscriber count,
If you think, okay, first of all, Demolition D has 6-figure subscriber count, so don't go talking to me about how you need to be a fucking oh, I better watch everything I say. If you don't have the same opinions as me, fuck you. There you go. That's all. Everyone who's not literally me is worse than me. See, this is just, I mean, you could say all these. They're empty things. These are empty things I'm saying. It's a joke. It's a meme. Hopefully people appreciate that. I don't know if anyone does. I don't care about A1 Pictures. I don't think they're bad or good or whatever. It's just
well, you did say that they were bad, so it's kind of.
But I don't care that they're bad. I mean, I do. I care when I'm making a YouTube video about it, But when I'm not, I don't think about it much, and I think that. How do I put it? Again, I'm not watching their shows. I'm not really an authority on their shows. I'm not someone who is the best to run through individually and pick out every element. I could do that. I thought about doing a big video on Shinsekai Yori just because everyone loves it so much, just talking about why I hate it so much. But honestly, at the end of the day, and this is why I haven't done that video, is because most people like that show. And it's one thing when you shit on Sword Art Online for 2 hours. And granted, at the time I did that, I thought, when I made my SAO videos way back that started this whole A1 shit, I thought everybody liked that show. I didn't know people didn't like it because I wasn't participating in the anime community at the time. So I was really shocked when that video did well and people agreed with it because I thought I was the only guy who was hating this show. So,
okay.
But sorry, I fucking lost my train of thought because I fucking talked about SAO. Point being, simply, I lost my point. I'm sorry. I'm a little too drunk at this point in the show.
I think it's fair to just kind of dispel
this notion
kind of attach. Yeah, that's the yeah, exactly right there.
Yeah, it's that it's
because that's something that's attached to your identity,
right? Oh yeah, I remember what I wanted to say.
You haven't really, you just kind of let it linger with you.
Well, I mean, because
whenever you bring up an A1 show, it kind of just adds and feeds to this.
I think it's funny, I think it's funny to view me as a character who hates A1 because the way I see it, everyone on YouTube's a character. We're all just in a show. This is a sitcom. We're all characters in the sitcom. We appear in one another's videos and like Kramer bursting through the door. That's me every time I'm on a podcast. Hey, what's going on with A1 Pictures? So. That's the way I see this whole YouTube world that we're all in. None of it is really meant to be taken seriously, nor is really much of anything that doesn't involve a life or death situation. Nothing in anime should be such a big deal that, if somebody says, A1 Pictures sucks, and people start, listening to them. I mean, in a way, in some small way, yes, lives are on the line, insofar as people need to get work. People need to get paid. The anime industry needs to persist. But, I'm a pundit like everybody else. I'm just saying, hey, I don't like these shows. Hopefully I convince you to not like these shows, and that way you won't spend money on them. Instead, I'll convince you to like this other show, you'll spend money on that, and the shows I like will keep getting made. And that's the only, incentive I have to be this way, to, talk about A1 sucking shit, other than that it's fun and it's entertaining for people, is that, I would prefer a world where only shows are made that I like. It would just be more fun for me.
I don't think A1's going much of anywhere.
No, they're not.
They're kind of Aniplex is backed by Sony, so even if they had a few failures or they had a year that everything just fucking went to shit.
I do think that if eventually people had enough of a problem with them, they would have to change something. And I honestly think they kind of did. I think that over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been, well, not 3 or 4, that's a lot of years. Over the last 2 years, they've been trying to get back to making more different stuff. Even Grimgar, which is just a fucking isekai show on some level, is different. It's not like every other isekai show. I can credit them with that. I just don't think it's good. And I also don't think anything else they did was good. So it's not that the only problems they have are the ones I've talked about in depth, but it just so happens by some weird cosmic coincidence, and this has never happened with any other studio, that I hate all the almost all the stuff they've done. And it's not even like there are some A1 Picture shows I love. I talked about Sora no Oto. There are no Silverlink shows I love. So maybe that studio's even worse, but I give almost every Silverlink show a 6 out of 10. So, like, they're this weird mediocrity.
6 out of 10
like,
isn't a bad
yeah.
show. I mean...
Yeah, it's not terrible.
But
I've never given,
also,
anything they made above a 6 out of 10. Whereas A1, I could at least say made some good shows, On
the topic of, on something like in Isekai, Gawakaru Restore the World is actually probably one of the, in terms of, anime that are isekai, I think it's probably one of the most original.
I couldn't make it through 5 minutes of that movie.
I don't blame you, but I'm just telling you, that film is a very, very different, idea for the isekai, and I think that while that movie was not successful at all, right? It was interesting and original, and it did come out in 2016, and it had Masashi Ishihama spearheading it with his his very choice direction.
I just think that a lot of the A1 Pictures shows that you can say good things about, it is ultimately damning with faint praise. In a case like that, you're like, well, it's different.
Well, I mean, there are really there's some really strong storyboarding in the movie, so I mean, there's some the ending of the film, while it is kind of the thing that I feel sours it.
Yeah.
It also kind of I feel that if I came back and after seeing some interviews with Ishihama talking about it, I feel like I might have a different stance on the film now. Because
I couldn't make it past the dialogue. I really hated the dialogue in the opening scene.
It's funny that you bring that up. Oh man. Yeah, I think that the background art in that movie is really beautiful. I don't you can see that in the first 5 minutes that the backgrounds are just, they're very
I just remember two
delicate.
Characters standing next to a fountain, and then they talked for a while, and some weird shit happened, and I gave up. That's all.
Well, I mean, the film was only an hour, man. Gosh.
Well, like I said, there's 4,000 things I gotta watch. I mean, I'm a generally pretty busy guy, I do videos about anime, and as a result, I'm constantly trying to find shows that will actually inspire me to say something, basically, I think that for a lot of anime fans, watching anime is a lot more casual and, laid back, and you just watch a show because it's kind of interesting. For me, and this has been true ever since way before I started actually doing videos, I just like watching anime as a project. For me, it's I have to watch this whole show, or I have to watch every show by this director and stuff like that, because I'm almost more interested in the meta element of it. Okay. And so, for me, when I start an anime and it's not, immediately engrossing, it's just well, let's go find something that is. And maybe when 15 years from now, if anime ever slows down enough that I won't have an infinite backlog, then I can watch some of these shows that people said were good and I didn't believe them, but
So, I have a question, because I feel that in 2015 there were a few projects, and you said you say 2016 is kind of where Grimgar is, and you got your Doku.
I would say around 2016 is where they started making Perfect Insider was a little bit
that's 2015.
Was it? Oh, that's the very end of 2015. You're right. That aired at the same time as the Asterisk Score, in fact. But
yes.
But yeah, from that point forward, I felt like they were working back in somewhat interesting stuff, but I just don't think anything they did was a full blown this is great. Except for Dokusei.
I think that it's funny that you bring up Perfect Insider. You are aware that Sora no Oto is by Mamoru Kanbei as well, right?
Yeah. I knew he directed that. I didn't know he directed Perfect Insider. You know what? I probably did know that when it was airing, and I fucking forgot, because I did not end up finishing that show, even though I was interested, just never got around to it.
Okay. So yeah. No, I thought that I think that the Perfect Insider is like you said, it was interesting.
Mhm.
Anthem of the Heart was also earlier than that too.
I have
it was
not
in
seen
the
that
butt
movie.
end.
I don't. Is that supposed to
Yeah,
be good?
I would. I think that I would say it's pretty good. I think it's
How
like
much
it has a
crying is
lot
in
of.
that movie?
Oh, so you know Mario Kart wrote it, eh?
Yeah, how much writing's in it or
Um,
crying's in it? Because it's the same team as Anohana, right?
yeah, same team.
Okay,
So there's like, I would say
there's crying.
there's a bit of it, but like it's a 2-hour film, and most of it doesn't have that.
Yeah, only like 17 minutes of crying.
Nah, I think it's more closer to like 5.
That's still a lot.
Which-
That's still a lot of minutes of crying in a movie.
Well, like I think the reason for the crying is more important than like the fact that the character is crying. Like, what are we wanted to animate with robots, like that are just like no emotion. Like, I watch straight title robot anime. I can tell you that's insufferable.
I didn't say that there being crying in the show would make it bad. You know, just asked how much there was. I also watched 3 episodes of straight title robot anime. I can't believe someone else has seen that.
Dude, hell yeah, man. That's a classic. Anime classic, bro.
Oh boy, Good Fairies is an actual anime classic though.
Good Fairies. It is an actual anime. It's glad you know it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Oh man. Straight title robot anime has like one of the weirdest endings.
I didn't finish that show, but now you've piked my interest.
I don't blame you.
Alright.
It like the ending of straight title robot anime is like it looks at the audience and says, well, we have a very it's like the audience it's like the show was like, we had a really bad show.
Uh-huh.
What if I told you that the joke, like the whole show, was the fact that the robots didn't have any concept of comedy. And so the series is them learning that, and when they figure out what comedy is, they die.
Oh. Well,
it's really morbid, right? like whoa, what the hell? It's like a really weird way to end the series, but yeah. Yeah, that
well,
sorry to bring that up.
Anyway, are we about winding down on this? I feel like I've run out of things to say about A1 Pictures. TBH.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I think
got
this
any questions?
I think this is a good time to sort of like call it.
Yeah, okay.
I guess if you guys want to give like ending comments or ending statements, I don't know what you guys want to add in.
Okay, I'll let you go first, Digi.
Oh boy, I mean, my ending comments are simply that like there's a lot of different reasons that I haven't liked A1 shows, and I brought up a lot of them in my Astro Score video and over the years. There's a lot more reasons. There's a lot of weird stuff I can't explain. And I've said this before, like, it's so divergent, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, it literally doesn't even make sense to me that A1 could have made so many shows I hate. And especially after making shows I liked. And it was a long, slow realization. I was disappointed with Nanana's Buried Treasure. That was like the moment where I first started noticing it, because I really liked the first few episodes of that show and it went downhill. And I started to feel like, I'm noticing a lot of the A1 shows, when I start them, I like them, like Fractale, first episode of that's good, then it turns into a total nightmare, you know? Didn't like the way Anohana went, didn't like the way, when Nanana's happened, that was when I was like, okay, this is a trend. And then from that point forward, it's like, every couple of years they make a show I think is okay, or a movie I even think is good, but like in the face of the sheer number of shows they make, it's astonishing to me that I haven't liked any of them, when like that track record has not been reproduced by any other studio. That like they can make so many shows that really the most damning thing about A1 shows is that they are kind of interesting, that a lot of them do have something going for them, do have some mild intrigue, but they're just not made great. And
I would disagree with that, but
well, what's your closing statement?
So, gotta open off. You know, Masaru Yokoyama in A1, they were match made in heaven. Anytime that man comes on an A1 show, you best know that score is going to be hot fire.
Wait,
Don't know
who
why
was
I'm
that?
bringing- Yokoyama, bro. The Yokoyama. Masaru Yokoyama, bro. He's the Gocher, man. Like, when he comes in, you know
Wait,
he's
the
gonna be making
what?
fire. The Gocher,
What
bro.
the fuck is a Gocher? What the fuck is that?
What's a Gocher?
I've never heard that word before.
Oh man, it's the cool kid slang. I'm sorry.
Oh boy. Well,
No idea what a culture is either.
Just to have.
I'm getting a
closing
Gocher
statement.
top definition from Urban Dictionary. An albino so white he causes blindness from his scaled, infectious, pale skin.
No, that's not what a Gocher is, man. That's not a Gocher, man.
Okay.
But my other closing statement, just because I thought of this and I was like, dang, that's a cool thing to say, but I was gonna say, and this is something I kind of noticed, and I get that you don't have a lot of time, or you say you're busy, but like if your audience was as dismissive as you were, like, about like these shows, I don't really think you would have much of an audience.
How do you mean?
Well, it's like like you like turn on these shows and you're like and a lot of them, like, you would say that, like, like these old others, like, you brought up a few shows where you said, like, oh, the first episode was intriguing or something like that. But like, if the first episode was intriguing, then there was an initial pull to that concept.
Yeah.
What if they eventually came back to that? Especially
none of the shows that had an interesting first episode were the ones I watched, like, that I dropped. If it had an interesting first episode, I probably watched it all and was fucking hugely disappointed. And that's why I'm complaining about it.
I'd also go further than that and say, if I was put off by the first, the first 3 episodes of Darling in the Franxx, which is a show that's very recent, so I can feel, I know what I was feeling with those first 3 episodes. In fact, I would say the first 4 episodes were utterly dreadful. But I kept continuing because I was patient, and I thought, well, this show has so much, like, hype and so much, like, talent poured into it that there has to be something there. And like, it feels like when you hear that, you just don't care. And you just turn it off and, you turn on something else.
Oh, I mean, if a show... Look, Darling in the Franxx, currently, here's who I heard talking about it. My buddy Ghost Lightning said after 3 or 4 episodes that he liked the show. He and I have pretty similar tastes. My friend Nino, who just likes hype, cool shit. You guys know Nino,
I know
anime blogger.
Jimmy knows me pretty well.
Yeah, so Jimmy likes the show a whole lot. Those are both people whose tastes are fairly similar to mine. So if people are telling me like that, people like them are telling me Darling in the Franxx is worth watching. First of all, I'm not going to watch it till it's over because they're probably wrong. It'll probably go to shit in the last half. So I'll wait. I'll wait to hear, and if everyone tells me that it's fucking amazing, I'll go watch it. But, like, only if it's people who generally like the shit I like. If some dude on Reddit's like, this is the best show in the world, and I'm like, show me your fucking 3x3. And they've got a bunch of bullshit in there, are going to be like, well, fuck you then. I'm not watching the show.
You are, like, have you seen Idolmaster? Like, that's a Atsushi Nishigori show as well. Like, that's his...
I saw the first 6 or 7 episodes of that, which was not... I didn't drop it because I hated it. It was airing at the time, and therefore I didn't finish it.
That's fair. Well, like, I don't know. I personally, like, because, like, this feels very in the same kind of spirit. It's a completely different concept, but a lot of the energy and passion that, like, Idolmaster exudes pretty consistently, I can definitely see that in Darling in the Franxx. And even in the episodes I didn't like, it was still there. It was just I didn't like.
Hey, it's a Trigger co-production. There's got to be some good shit in there, you know.
Well, the first episode Trigger did was pretty bad. So in my opinion, so I don't know if that really means a whole lot.
Is it the first episode that they did in awesome. Terms of like, I mean, define did? Do you just mean they animated it, or do you mean that
they animated the episode?
Because who were
they animated in their studios.
In the creation of Darling in the Franxx? On what, you know, who were the creative people? Like, I think that matters more than who animated the show. You know, like who is actually the creator of Darling in the Franxx? Like, who wrote it? Who directed it? Who do these people work for? You know, is the show better when, you know, even if the show is better when A-1 Pictures is like literally animating the episodes, did they write that episode? Did a guy who works, did somebody at A-1 who's one of the main producers like approve that? Whoever is like the worst at picking scripts in the entire universe pick that one? Because that's the guy who picks most of the A-1 scripts. But, like, you know, maybe it was a different guy. I don't know. There's so many people who work on an anime. Like, I don't think you can make it as cut and dry as to say, like, Trigger did great this time. A-1 did great this time. I mean, half the reason for this conflict is that I always blame A-1 for things that people think I shouldn't blame them for. But, like, for me, it's more of this, like, mystic, bizarre concept, you know?
Even in the episodes that A-1 did more of, there were still, like, you know, like you said, there were still people who work for Trigger that were like appearing in these episodes, and like I brought up earlier, like with the you know, the CGI was done by completely different people, and you know,
and all it really takes is
if you look at the producers, you can see these just gigantic list of just people who are just chucking stuff into the series.
I mean, all it takes,
a lot of voices and a lot of people.
All it really takes is one guy being good. Like, Sword of the Stranger, that movie is terrible, but it has the greatest action scene of all time in it. You know, like that.
I disagree that movie's bad.
The movie is boring and shitty. The plot sucks. The characters are lame. Everything about that movie is total shit except for the action scenes. Like, nothing. Do you know the main character's name in that movie? I've seen that shit like 3 times. I don't know anybody's name. Like, that shit is
not
fucking...
off the top of my head, but I do remember the kid's name.
There is an absurd amount of, like, characters standing around talking about the plot in that movie, and no one remembers the plot in that movie. People remember that for the action scenes, you know? And really, they remember the last action scene. They remember, you know, Utapon, doing his shit.
The film was created to, like, celebrate that kind of, you know, like scenes where there was action and stuff.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that, like,
so
all it took.
Effective at doing.
I'm saying that all it took to make that movie like a successful film was Utapon drew the greatest fight scene of all time. That's what made that movie worth watching.
I don't really think people like walked out of that movie and went to each other and went, yo, that Utapon fight at the end of the movie was crazy, right?
That's literally how I, like, when I watched Sword of the Stranger, I was like, wow, that movie fucking sucked until the end. Like, that's not entirely true. I enjoyed the movie the first time, but...
There are great, like, fight scenes throughout that film.
I don't entirely agree. I think that a lot of those... There's only, like, a couple minutes of fighting in that movie. It's like an hour and 40 minutes long, and there's like a couple minutes of fighting in that movie. It's real boring. You should watch it again. Anybody who watched my video was like, fuck you, Sword of the Stranger's great. Watch it again. A lot of it's boring. Used to be on my favorites list. Just saying. Watch it again. You know, I had last seen it probably 2010. So, you know, it was a big rewatch for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done. Joe, want to wrap this up?
Yep. Thank you, Digi and Scrolls for coming on and talking about the A1 pictures. You guys can, if anybody is interested, you can support the podcast efforts using the Audible link, www.audible.com/LinusTechTips. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sick.